This file has 800 people in it. My app just imported 975. Nothing crashed, no error, no failed job, no red anywhere. The import ran, hit a service that was briefly down, retried the way I told it to, and finished successfully, with 175 people in there twice. And I caused this, not by writing a bad queue, by writing a good one. The retry logic that was supposed to make this reliable is the exact thing that duplicated the data. So let's build a background job pipeline that actually holds up. Retries, backoffs, the idempotency problem you just watched, and where jobs go when they're never going to succeed. I am in a demo version of All Family Tree. It's not a real app, but it has enough of the real features to be useful here. 2 pages, a landing page, and a dashboard. The thing I care about is this. Import getcom. That's how you bring a family tree in from another piece of genealogy software. There is one other piece. This demo has a service called place names. When a tree gets imported, it normalizes the place names of every record. Think of it as a third-party API, because in a real app, that's exactly what it would be. Let's go ahead and import a small file, 23 members, and it works fine. But real files have thousands of individuals in them. And it's not just getcom. An Excel import, a CSV, a data migration, any of those can be hundreds of thousands of rows. You can't hold an HTTP request open for that. So you put it on queue. Everybody puts it on queue. And here's the problem nobody mentions. The naive version of that is worse than the synchronous version in one specific way. If the synchronous handlers blow up, at least you return a 500 and somebody sees it. A background job that blows up returns nothing to anyone. It fails in the dark. 3 ways that bites you. The place name API goes down and nothing retries, or something does retry and you get half the tree in the database twice. That's the one from the intro, or the process dies mid-job on a deploy. Every one of those is a configuration problem. Let's fix them. For the queue, I'm using BullMQ. It's a Node library implementing a fast, robust queue system, and it's normally built on Redis. Except in this tutorial, we're not using Redis. BullMQ version 6 added a Postgres backend, and I already have Postgres. It's the app's database. So that's one less service to run, backup, monitor, and pay for. I'll come back at the end to where Redis is the better call. Before any of that, something to pay attention to whenever you're integrating a third-party library with a coding agent. Check what version you are actually on. Look at this. Version 6 came out recently. Your agent may not know it exists, and there is a full list of breaking changes right here. Things that were removed, things that got replaced. So do the legwork up front. I had Claude Code research this and drop notes file in a docs folder and pointed claude.md at it. I use context 7, so Claude Code can usually fetch current docs on its own, but that's a live lookup that may or may not happen on any given turn. This file costs nothing and it always applies. Let's go ahead and ask Claude Code for BullMQ and Postgres Backend integration, explicitly not touching import logic yet. I'm asking for integration only, not import logic. One thing at a time. Done. And notice something it installed, Redis, even though we're on Postgres. That's just how the package is shipped. It's a pure dependency either way, not a mistake, but worth seeing so it doesn't confuse you. Let's open Prisma Studio with npm run db studio. This will open Prisma Studio in the browser. I'm using Prisma in this project, and Prisma ships Prisma Studio, a UI over your database in the browser. I'm going to lean on this a lot because most of what goes wrong today goes wrong in the data. Here's the public schema, our tables, and here's something else, a BullMQ schema with a whole set of tables in it. That's the backend. It creates its own schema and builds its own tables. Claude Code triggered the migration here, but normally this happens on a first connect automatically when your app starts. Worth knowing before it shows up in your production database rather than after. Now let's prompt Claude Code to move the import of the request path on a real BullMQ queue. It says it verified the import works. I'm going to verify it myself because the agent said it, tested is not a test. There is a worker script now. This is a separate process. It has to be. A worker is a long-lived and Next.js route handlers are not. Claude code left its test data behind, so let me clear that out in Prisma Studio. Let's go ahead and import a small file with 23 members again. Import returns straight away and the worker picks it up over here. It's running in the background now. But look at what isn't in config. No attempts, no backoff, no retention. Let me kill the place name service and try a bigger file. Transient failure and no retry. One attempt, straight to fail. That's BullMQ's default. Not 3 attempts, 1. If you never passed an options object, you don't have retries. You have a queue that gives up immediately, which is most of the way to not having a queue at all. Let's go ahead and ask Claude Code for the retry config with exponential backoff and state the resulting delay sequence. I'm explicitly asking to state the delay sequence. A backoff config that reads fine and produces a 2-hour final retry is a thing that happens. You want those numbers now, not in production. Roughly 1, 2, 4, 8. The total window is under a minute, which fits the failure I'm defending against, a service that briefly unavailable and then comes back. One thing to check when you're reviewing this, the retry config lives on the job, not the worker. That matters. Different job types want different retry profiles. A place name lookup should retry aggressively. A job that charges somebody's card should not. Policy at the call site means each one gets its own. Place names service is still down, so let's watch it try. 5 attempts, widening gaps, and it never recovers because the server never came back. And there is a trade-off hiding in this because when it does recover, it looks so clean. Exponential backoff means a job failing for a real reason takes much longer to reach its final failure and land somewhere you'll notice. You've traded detection time for resilience. Usually the right call. Every design decision comes with a trade-off. Now those retries just introduced a failure. Let me show you. But before we do it, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. I'm going to put service back up, start the import, now kill the service part way through, wait, bring it back, retries do their thing, and the import completes. 975 members. The file has 800. What happened? We imported some members, the service went down, we backed off, we recovered, and then we re-imported everything the first attempt had already written. The retry didn't resume, it restarted. Everything from the first attempt is still sitting there, and the second attempt wrote it all again. These are non-idempotent writes, and they are the thing to watch for when you build a queue, because the more you harden it, the more attempts you add, the more often your handler runs twice, and the more those writes cost you. Let's ask Claude Code what our options for fixing this. When you're making a design call, you want the menu first because not every option fits your use case. 4 options came back: unique constraint plus upsert, wrap the import in a transaction, an idempotency key at the job level, or delete and redo. It recommends the unique constraints with upsert and knows you can pair it with a transaction. I was already thinking about transaction, so let's go ahead and do both. The transaction gives me all or nothing per attempt, which is what I want for an import. The constraint is there because I don't trust that transaction to cover every path forever. Somebody will add a write outside it eventually, and I'd rather that fail loudly at the database than quietly duplicate a family. Let's go ahead and do the same test. Let's start an import, kill the service, restart it. The import recovers, and look at that. Now we have 800 members imported. That is correct. Now let's look at another option. Let's try importing a corrupt file. We can see that we have 5 attempts, but we knew on the first attempt this was never going to import. 5 identical parse errors, 16 seconds of pointless work, and a worker slot a real job could have used. Let's go ahead and ask Claude Code to fix that. Let's ask it to classify failures, throw UnrecoverableError for parse and validation errors. BullMQ has a specific error type for this. throw unrecoverable error, and the job fails immediately, skipping the remaining attempts. This replaces job discard method on one of the version 6 removals from that changelog. Let's go ahead and import malform jetcom document again. And now we got immediate failure and one attempt. Fails right away. No waiting on retries that were never going to help. One thing about the shape of this. The default is retry and unrecoverable is the explicit exception. That's the right way around. Misclassify a transient error and you throw away a job that would have succeeded. Misclassify the other way and you waste a few seconds. So where do our failed jobs go? They are in a failed set, which is fine, except nobody is looking at it. And the default retention will eventually drop those rows, at which point you have no record the work was ever requested. And BullMQ doesn't ship a dead letter queue. I come from AWS and I've used SQS a lot. There, I'm used to having a dead letter queue. The failed jobs drop on it. I redrive them. I get notified. Here we have to build that letter queue ourselves. Let's go ahead and ask Claude to create a dead letter queue and move the exhausted jobs on it with a context and original payload. Remove on fail on the main queue. No removal on a DL queue, plus a check script. Retention set explicitly on both. The main queue can clean up aggressively. The DL queue is the record now, so it keeps everything, because the whole point is that a human reads it later. Let's go ahead and import malformed jetcom document again. It fails. Then we can run npm run DLQ check in the terminal, and there it is. Job ID, the path to upload, and the error that killed it. I'll be straight about the limit. This is a dead letter queue, not a dead letter system. No alerts, no replay, no redrive. If you want a video on building that part, drop a comment. Okay, one more. And this one that quietly loses the most jobs. A job is running, the process gets SIGTERM, a deploy, a scale down, a container restart, the worker dies mid-job. That job doesn't fail. It doesn't retry. It sits inactive forever, waiting on a worker that no longer exists. Nothing alerts because as far as the queue knows, it's still running. Let's go ahead and ask Claude explicitly for SIGTERM and SIGINT handlers awaiting worker close. The fix is worker close on SIGTERM and SIGINT. It stops accepting new jobs, waits for the current one, and if it can finish, the job goes back on the queue as stalled, so another worker picks it up. Now the handlers were already there. Claude added them when it scaffolded the worker. They just weren't graceful. They didn't wait. So the process was existing before the job finished, which is the same outcome with extra steps. Worth checking in your code because this is exactly the kind of thing that looks handled. And the part that gets missed if you're running in Docker, your stop grace period has to be long enough for that handler to finish. Mine defaults to 10 seconds. My import takes 40. So I write a graceful shutdown handler that never completes. 10 seconds in, Docker sends sig kill and the job dies anyways. Bump into 60, deploy gets slower, easy trade. I said I'd come back to this. Why Postgres here? One data store instead of two, one thing to run, backup, secure, monitor, and get paged about. Your jobs are queryable with SQL, which is genuinely useful at 2 in the morning. You saw me poking at them in Prisma Studio all video. And it's cheaper, though managed Redis is $10 or $15 a month, so don't pick it on price alone. The operational argument is the strong one. What it isn't, it's not pulling your database into the ground. The backend uses listen notify, so job pickup is event driven, not a select on a timer. That was my first concern, and it turned out to be wrong. Where Redis still wins. Throughput at the top end. Redis holds this in memory. Postgres is writing rows with a vacuum and wall pressure that comes with a high churn table. Tens of thousands of jobs a minute, that's a real gap. And your queue now shares a connection pool and an input-output budget with the queries serving your users. At this apps volume, that's nothing. At scale, it's the reason Redis exists. And the thing that should probably decide it, this backend is new. Redis-backed BullMQ has years of production hardening behind it. The Postgres path is well built, feature parity all the way down to stalled job recovery, but nobody has run it under real load for a year yet. I'm fine putting it on this project. Think harder before you put it somewhere a lost job costs money. One limitation worth knowing: you can't enqueue a job inside your own transaction. There is no API for handing your client to queue add, so the thing you'd most want out of Postgres, back queue, commit the row and the job automatically, isn't available yet. Here's the thing I take away from all of this. A queue is not a reliability feature, it's a deferral feature. And by default, that's all it does. Everything else, the retries, the backoff, the idempotent writes, the dead letter queue, is what you build on top. Skip it, and you've taken work that used to fail loudly and taught it to fail silently. And the order matters, because it's not the order most people go in. Retries first feels right. It's wrong. Retries without idempotent writes is how you get 975 people out of 800-person file. You created that bug by making the system safer. So, if you do one thing this week, find the job in your app that writes to the database and run it twice on purpose. Same input back to back. If the second run changes anything, you don't have a retry problem yet, but you will the moment you add retries.